let's first talk about consumer segments. Okay. So in every market, okay, it doesn't matter what market you're in. We just happen to be in the real estate space. This is how the consumer segments kind of break apart. All right. So at the top of the funnel, there are 3%, only 3% of the market that is looking to do business right now. And so this is things like your the people that are, well, just that, selling their houses right now. And that could also be your, your FSBOs. This is also your expireds, et cetera. And so that makes up 3% of the pond. Now, the issue with that, though, is that segment is, and the reason I put it in red, is sort of like a bloodbath. This is where everybody is fighting to get clients. It is an absolute bloodbath because obviously that pays us the fastest. So at the top of the consumer segment, when 3% of the people are doing business right now, everybody wants a piece of that. So you have like 90% of the market going after that 3%. That's why it's so damn competitive. Then you have 7% of the market that have the intent to do something in the near future. So they intend to move. All right. So we'll put those people in the green. And these people they're going to move. All right. They're going to move. And so this top of what we call top of funnel is 10%. That's 10% of any market that is ready to essentially transaction business either like today or in the near future. And this is what we've been talking about as a community forever, which is that your contact to lead generated is about 10%. And it just makes sense, right? So this is what we consider leads. All right. Now, just to take that a step further, if I show you guys this, if I just pull up one of the markets where I sell real estate, and I look at total households, all right, there's 5,400 households. And then I pull up my actual MLS and say, okay, in that market, if I look and say how many houses have sold in the last year in that market, how many have actually sold? Look at that, about 10%. And so your market's probably between that 3 and 10%, but your overall market is probably somewhere around 10% total, right? Meaning that about 10% of the people that own homes in your market are selling every single year. Again, your mind right now is just on the low-hanging fruit, that 3%, which I totally understand. I mean, that's like most marketers. This is where they put a lot of money, a lot of attention, and it is an absolute bloodbath, all right? Then we have the next segment, which is 30%, which is thinking about moving. Thinking about moving. So that's a big portion, right? If we're talking about, just as an example, we'll just say that in any given market, we'll just say in this market has, we'll say 10,000 homeowners. So we know that 10% or about 1,000 are going to move this year. Okay. So that's the 10%. So that's what everybody's going after. That's what everyone's vying for. But then there's another 3,000 people that are thinking about moving at some point in the future. And then there's another 30% that they don't have need right now. Okay? They don't have a need right now. That makes up of another 3,000 people. And then the last 30% just are not interested in moving, right? They're just not interested. So that's another 3,000 people. So this all makes up, you've got your 3, 6, 9, 10,000 people. This makes up the entire marketplace, all right? And so this is where it all starts. So you've got all these different buckets. we call this the bottom 90, right? So this is the 90%. However, if you just look at this before we even move on to anything else, you say, okay, well, where does that 10% come from? In other words, where do the people that are selling this year, where do they come from? And all of you would just say, well, they must come from this, the 90%. And you'd be right. So there's a lot of gold that is potentially unmined because you're just going after the top or bottom of funnel, the people looking to transact business. Now, so that's consumer segments, okay? There's a bunch of books on this. There's a bunch of blogs out there on this. You can go do your own research on that. But that's number one, all right? Now, let's talk about the next concept. Let's talk about the client journey. So this is super, super, super important if you're going to really become a well-rounded entrepreneur, let's call it, all right? So here's how this works. I'll kind of map this out for you guys as we go along. So every business needs some type of traffic source. They have to get their message in front of their potential customers or clients, prospects, right? And so a lot of companies have different methods to do that. Some do advertising. They advertise on Google, they advertise on Facebook. They do some type of advertising. They do TV, they do radio, they do some type of content. They get their message in front of people. Some knock their doors, cold emailing, direct messaging, and cold calling. Right? These are all ways to drive traffic to your business to get your message out there. All right. And this is all what we call rented land. Rented land, meaning in most of these traffic sources, this is space that you don't own. Advertising, you don't own the advertising platforms. You don't own the TV. You don't own radio. You don't own social media platforms. You don't own any of this. You don't own, again, all of this could go away. At any point in time, all of it could go away. Cold calling could go away. Door knocking could go away. Social media could go away. I mean, look at what just happened with TikTok over the last couple of days. All of this could go away. That's what I mean by rented land. So you're taking what you can as traffic, having conversations with potential clients on rented space. And then what businesses do is from that traffic, they put them into their database. They get them into their world or their owned land, which is what they want. They want to be operating on owned land. Well, how do they do that? They have some type of lead magnet. And we'll talk a lot about those later. Something in exchange of value for their contact information, which allows people to initiate their level of intent. So we'll talk about how this happened to you and me, which is what caused us to be in a relationship, in a business relationship. So they have this lead magnet, they get into their database, and now they have a sales pipeline, right? They have a sales pipeline. So this sales pipeline consists of a cold list of people, nurtures, warm leads, hot leads, etc. And like any pipeline, they're going to do things to follow up with that pipeline, like call them, like email them, like do direct mail, retargeting, etc. They're going to do different type of follow-up tactics to get them to their client acquisition mechanism, which every company has. They have to have some way of acquiring new clients. So sometimes this is a face-to-face meeting. Sometimes this is a webinar. Sometimes this is a seminar. Sometimes this is a checkout page, right? Sometimes this is a phone call. Sometimes it's a Zoom, etc. So they are following up with that pipeline to get them to whatever their client acquisition mechanism is. And then from that mechanism, a certain percentage become new clients, right? Which just brings us down to the next step of the funnel. So they become a new client. And from being a new client, they have their client delivery system. Okay. And hopefully it's a good one, because a certain percentage of those become closings where they actually get paid. And hopefully, because of that experience, they start to refer clients. And this is where a really healthy business creates a flywheel. They've got a really good acquisition model up top that brings people into their database. They follow up with that database, generating lots of client acquisition opportunities, which then become new clients. They have a great client delivery mechanism so that they actually get paid. And as a result of that, they start referring more people, and they just keep getting more and more and more and more and more business. Every single new client that comes in the door becomes more business because of their client delivery. And that client delivery allows them to get paid, which then in return, they get referrals. This is like this scaling flywheel. So that one day they can turn off the new client acquisition model because the flywheel is working so well, and they just keep getting repeat and referral business. So let me give you, now we're talking about emails, right? We're talking about the power of emails here. And most of you still are just like, well, yeah, but where does the email thing come into play? Well, let me show you. So let me pull up my email database and I will show you what I mean. All right. So I have, there's actually more than this, but I have about 49,000 people on my email list. Well, are they all clients? No. Are they all hot leads ready to buy from me today? No, they're not. But check this out. I send out emails to my database just like you should be doing. And I'll show you one of the ones I just sent out just so you can really understand the power of this. So I sent this out to 50,000 people. And if you just look at the analytics here, about 43% opened the email, or 19,800 people saw the message. Now, let me ask you a question. How long would it take you to talk to 19,807 people? It would be a lot of phone calls. Probably take you a whole career. You probably wouldn't even be able to do that many. And so this is the power of having the email list, is I can hit a button and it's no more work to send out an email to 100 people or 50,000 people. It's the same amount of work. This is called leverage. And now every week or every couple of days, I can make a touch. I can make a follow-up touch with people in my database at the click of a button. Bigger the list, more people. Watch this. Then we go to the click-through percentage. So on any given email, like I said in the post the other night, it's about 2%. 1.38% of people on this specific email clicked to schedule a consultation with my team. 626 people clicked a button because of the list out of 45,000. So 1.38% of 45,000 is 626 people. And just imagine this for yourself. Yeah, if you only have, 50 people on the email list, 1% of that's not very many. But let me show you what is possible. So let's put this all together now so you can really see the power of this and what I'm talking about. So when we talk about traffic in terms of our business of real estate sales, this is built on phone calls. Okay, this is what we're doing. We are telemarketing. Most of you aren't doing paid traffic. You're not doing paid ads. You're not doing radio. You're not doing advertising. Most of you aren't doing that much content marketing. And so the vast majority of you are making phone calls to people that you want to do business with, looking for clients. Now, if we just use this example of 20 contacts per day, this is what I was talking about in the post. Most of you are living in the problem, which is focusing on the 3% only. Remember we talked about the segments, the 3% only, those expired listings, those for sale by owners, which at the same time you tell me, oh my God, these are such a pain in the ass. But that's all you're doing right now. You're focusing your entire business on just scraping the 3%, maybe the 10%. When there's 90% opportunity in your market, you're not doing anything with those people. But just check this out. So of the 20 contacts you're having right now, you're only focusing on just the people that are looking to transact business right now, which fine. You have some type of lead magnet, right? Which is your resume. Maybe you set an appointment, home value report, market update email. And right now, you're hopefully converting about 10%, which is that top 10% we talked about, right? Remember that? So that's about 2 leads per day. However, you are already on the phone. You already own the traffic. You are already created the opportunity of these 20 conversations. What if before you hung up, just like every other marketing company, right? We talked about this, you'd be making probably a lot more damn money. So my point is, you are already having the conversations. You might as well ask them one more question, and about 20% of those might turn into email opt-ins. That's the 90% of the consumer segment. Remember the people we talked about at the beginning of the video? At the beginning of the training? These people right here? The 90%. They're not looking to do anything right now. You already converted those. You're already getting your 10%. You got those. But where do those people come from? Well, they come from this 90%. You're already talking to the 90%. You're already talking to the people that are thinking about moving. You're already talking to the people that don't have a need right now. And you're already talking to people that are not interested right now. But at some point, the 10% have to come from somewhere. So you're already talking to them. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you put in the full court press, a follow-up. Let me talk about that. But if you make the ask, and we talked about scripting, and you get 4 people, or about 20%, because if you have 20 conversations and 10% of those turn into an actual lead, this is that top 10% of the segment of the market that are looking to do business now. You're doing great there. And then another 20%, right? So 20% of 18 is about 4. You get 3 or 4 more email addresses of the 90% of the people that aren't looking to do business now. Now you put them into your database, your world. This is your owned land. And in 1 year, you'd have about 1,500 people in your world, in your pipeline. I know this is a crazy word for most people because they're only worried about like the person looking to put a sign in the yard like today. So now you've got this pipeline of people. Let's just look at in a year from now, you could have about 900 people on that cold email list that are getting an email, right? You've got about 400 nurtures that are getting that email, maybe a monthly mailer, maybe a monthly call. You've got 150 warm people, right, in there getting emails, weekly calls, weekly mailers, texts, etc. And you probably got 50 people getting daily calls, etc., etc. Well, what's the one thing that all these people were getting, that all of them were getting? What's the one thing? What's the common denominator that every single person in the database is getting that is the highest point of leverage? That's right. It's the email. So let me ask you a question. What is 1%? We'll just be really conservative. We'll just be really conservative, right? If we just said, okay, well, 1% of this database, okay, turns into a listing appointment, right? Or 15, let alone 2, that'd be 30%, right? But 1%, well, let's pretend you actually don't do what we're talking about and you don't get any of the cold traffic, the people in the bottom 90%. You say, no, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Okay, well, that leaves you with 500 people in the database, right? And again, I know you're converting more than this. I'm just trying to make a point that the opportunity just from cold email alone would go from 15 to 5 into a listing appointment where you could present, and obviously a certain percent of that turns into a client, which hopefully you've got a really good delivery system That turns into a closing where you can make some money. They start referring you business. And now you've created this nice flywheel. But the point is, you're trying to grow this database as much as you can with the traffic that you already have. And I think that where the disconnect was, which was, well, I thought it wasn't in the data collection. Okay, you already paid for the ad. It would be the same thing like this. So let's pretend you were doing paid traffic, okay? Or you were doing free traffic, like content marketing. It's the same thing as phone calls, right? You're just telemarketing versus content versus paid. Let's just say you're doing paid traffic on Facebook. It would be the same thing as saying, okay, you're going to pay to put your ad in front of 1,000 people per day. And of the 100 people that wanted to opt into your lead magnet, that you had some type of questionnaire on there that says, well, are you looking to do business with me today? And all the people that said no wouldn't get the lead magnet, therefore wouldn't go into your database. Your advertising would be so expensive, you'd go out of business. That's the same thing as you saying, well, I'm already on the phone call. I've already made the call. I've already made the investment of time. I'm already talking to the Tom right now. If he's not part of the 10%, he's not in that segment of people that want to do business right now, you've already paid for the traffic. You paid with your time. So because you've already paid for it, you might as well put them on in your world. You might as well take them from the rented space and put them into own land, which is the database. You're just paying with your time instead of dollars. And so you would never do that with your dollars. You would never tell Google, okay, Google, you're paying Google, it's pay per click or pay per lead. And so you want everybody to come into your world because a certain percentage of those people will turn into an appointment. A certain percentage of those people. It would be like this too. This is kind of like that thinking. It'd be like, most of you have like a 30 to 50% conversion, which means 3 or 5 out of 10. But if you only went on 3 appointments instead of the 10 appointments, you wouldn't even get a listing. Did you hear that? Okay, let me just make sure. Let me make this one last point and then we'll move off this. Did you hear what I said? Most of you, we'll just call it a 40% conversion from appointment met to actual contract signed, listing taken, right? Which means you only have this conversion because you went on 10. You went on 10, 6 people told you no, 4 people said yes, which means if you only went on 4 appointments, because you didn't go on 10, you only went on 4. Yeah, it's one listing. 1 listing taken versus 4 listings taken.